Greetings. As per the title of this video, this two-part series will be on the subject of King James and his translators being Anglicans, and how the implications of this fact are relevant to the appearance of the word Easter in Acts 12:4 in the King James Bible. I've been thinking about doing a video or a series of videos on the subject of King James and his translators being Anglicans for quite some time, because I've always been amused by the fact that the implications of this fact are lost on the vast majority of King James-onlyists, and including UPK or Black Hebrew Israelites. But I didn't feel the motivation to do so until just this past week, when I was taking part in the discussion in the comment section of a video titled Breakdowns for Black Hebrew Israelite Dummies on the Shar 2 page. There was some discussion therein about the implications of the translation that's in the King James Bible, what they say about the interpretation of the translators. And at a certain point, a certain UPK or Black Hebrew Israelite who goes by the name Tawab Rakah wrote the following to me. And he wrote this comment in reference to the King James translators. Quote, "These men were ordered to translate the Bible from the Hebrew and the Greek, and that's that. Their interpretation should never be questioned." End quote. Now, naturally, I was somewhat incredulous at the suggestion that we can never question the interpretation of the King James translators, and to try and drive this point home, I quickly segued into a different topic, and this time I raised the subject of Acts 12:4, which mentions Easter, and this is a point of controversy for UPKers because they categorically reject the celebration of Easter, yet the word Easter appears in their favorite translation, again in Acts 12:4. So when I pressed Tawab Rakah about this, he wrote yet another comment which stated the following, quote, "Acts 12:4 can easily be cut with verse 3, for unleavened bread is the Passover, and Hoyt and Westcott and the Catholic haters of King James added that in to push their doctrine. In the Hebrew or Greek it says Passover," end quote. Now, when he speaks of Hoyt and Westcott, he's referring to Brooke F. Westcott and Fenton J.A. Hort, both of whom were born in the 1820s. Now, the claim that they added the word Easter to the King James Bible is easily refuted, and it can easily be proven false by virtue of the fact that editions of the King James Bible which predate their birth have the word Easter. For example, here we're looking at a first edition of the King James Bible dating to 1611. This is how the King James Bible appeared when it first came out, and we have it open to Acts 12, and as we zoom in on verse 4, you can see that the word Easter appears therein. Now again, this particular edition predates the birth of Westcott and Hort by 2 centuries, and yet Easter appears there. So clearly Tawab Rakah was wrong when he said that they were the ones who added Easter to the King James Bible. As the discussion continued, Tawab Rakah had some more interesting comments, and I feel these comments sort of reveal his unfamiliarity with the subject and the relevance of King James and his translators being Anglicans. At one point he wrote a comment which read as follows, quote, "Easter goes into the Council of Nicaea. Anyone who knows such would be able to see through the translation of Easter as not being done by King James," end quote. And then he sent another comment which read as follows, quote, "Easter was started by the Roman Catholic Church. Why would that day be observed in a King James Bible when King James of England was against the teachings and observances of the Roman Catholic Church?" End quote. These are interesting questions, and the simple answer, which never seemed to have dawned on Tawab Rakah, perhaps because he's unfamiliar with the subject, the answer to the questions is King James and his translators were Anglicans. Now, this is significant because while indeed the Anglican Church did break away from the Roman Catholic Church and did reject a number of doctrines of the Roman Catholic Church, most notably the doctrine regarding the papacy, it's nonetheless the case that Anglicans are far closer to Roman Catholics in terms of theology than they are to UPKers. And the Anglican Church never repudiated the practice of Easter. Anglicans celebrate Easter to this day, and they've always celebrated Easter, which means that King James and his translators celebrated Easter. So in this video, I'd like to get into some of the clues that point to this, and I'm going to build it up slowly, and it's going to start to mount as we go on. To begin with the clues that I'm going to build up, I'd like to start with a very mild and lighthearted example, but it's relevant because a lot of UPKers like to get into symbols and what they mean. I'd like to take a look at the famous image of King James, the famous engraving of King James made by Simon van de Pas, which is the UPKers' favorite image of King James, because they're constantly making appeals to it. Notice the object in King James' left hand at the bottom right hand corner of the screen As we zoom in on it, it's a sphere with a cross on top of it, which is a symbol common to both the Catholic and Anglican churches. It predates their split. It symbolizes the conquest of Christianity, the triumph of Christianity over the entire world. And to show that this is a Catholic symbol, take a look at this image of the dome of St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City. Okay, we're going to zoom in on the top part of the dome, and as we get really close, you'll notice that the exact same object is there. It's the same sphere with a cross on top of it, which appeared in the image of King James, made by Simon van de Pas. But of course, that's a lighthearted example. There's much better examples which show the proximity of the Anglican Church and King James in particular, and his translators in particular, to the Roman Catholic Church. For example, turning back to the first edition of the King James Bible, the translators of that Bible actually had a preface to the reader, so you get to see some insights into the mind of the translators themselves, the men who translated the King James Bible. And in this preface to the reader, there's a few portions that I'd like to look at. The first portion I'd like to look at is the following, which reads as follows, quote, "Heretics they call us by the same right that they call themselves Catholics, both being wrong," end quote. What's being said here is the translators, these Anglican translators who produced the King James Bible, they're referring to Roman Catholics. And what they're saying is that Roman Catholics call them heretics, and they're wrong, and Roman Catholics call themselves Catholics, and they're also, again, wrong. This represented the Anglican Church's position that they, and not the Roman Catholic Church, were the true Catholic Church. Let me repeat that again. What this statement made by the translators of the King James Bible reflects is the belief of Anglicans that they're the true Catholic Church. Another interesting part of the translator's preface to the readers of the King James Bible is a portion in which they have something rather positive to say about Constantine. In that portion, which is right here, they state the following, quote, "For the Scripture saith not in vain, them that honor me I will honor. Neither was it a vain word that Eusebius delivered long ago, that piety towards God was the weapon and the only weapon that both preserved Constantine's person and avenged him of his enemies," end quote. Now, this quote is significant because they're quoting Eusebius, who clearly was someone who was a fan of Constantine. He didn't have the sort of negative opinion of Constantine that UPKers have today. And the translators of the King James Bible seem to be echoing his sentiment. Now, you'll notice that in the margin, they they reference what text from Eusebius they're quoting. It's actually the 10th book and 8th chapter of his ecclesiastical history. And that text, the relevant portion that they were alluding to, actually reads as follows, quote, "But God was the friend, protector, and guardian of Constantine, and bringing the plots which had been formed in secrecy and darkness to the light, he foiled them. So much virtue does the great armor of piety possess for the warding off of enemies and for the preservation of our own safety. Protected by this, our most divinely favored emperor escaped the multitudinous plots of the abominable man," end quote. We should really take into account what this shows us. It shows that the translators of the King James Bible were very much in line with the ancient Catholic Church in terms of its understanding of Constantine's role, in terms of its belief that Constantine was a pious emperor and a defender of the faith. Now, that alone should speak volumes about what sort of belief system the translators of the King James Bible had. Now, in part 2, I'm going to start to look into some of the writings of King James himself, which is going to bring this out even more and show that much like the translators of the King James Bible, King James himself considered himself a Catholic.